With that wonderful story of Rita's flowers grown and marketed by hand right here in Texas, now let's take a look at the growing nationwide sensitivity about cut flowers. We're joined by Debra Prinzing, an author who's written a beautiful book about this whole phenomenon called the 50-Mile Bouquet, and her new book, Slow Flowers, 4 Seasons of Locally Grown Bouquets. And we're also joined by Rita Anders, who's of Cuts of Color from Weimar, Texas, who is actually one of these local growers who's providing us with magical and beautiful flowers in our own backyard. So it's great to have you here.
Thanks.
Debra, I want to start with you. Let's talk about this phenomenon. There's a growing recognition that there's a kind of a dark side to the floral industry, and local and sustainable practices are coming back to the floral industry, largely thanks to folks like Rita. But you've been a champion of this, so thank you for that.
Absolutely. I feel like flower farmers are the new rock stars in the floral world, and I think what's behind it is very much a parallel with the slow food industry.
Exactly.
We want to know the food we're eating. Chefs have popularized their vendors, the purveyors, and that storytelling really draws us in and makes us appreciate the work of growing food. Well, similarly, it's happening again in the domestic flower industry, and it's really exciting when we can make that connection with who's growing our flowers.
Yeah, it's a way of reweaving community, really, you know, both the food growers and the flower vendors as well, because you're supporting your neighbors.
Absolutely,
you know.
Absolutely. And it's just so generic when we're buying flowers in a plastic sleeve at a supermarket, and we have no idea, they're not even in season, and we don't know where they came from, and what
might be on them.
Right.
That was the thing that concerns me.
How they were treated, and we just have a little bit of a disconnect, whereas when we know the farmer and we can meet the farmer face to face, or we hear their stories, we're supporting an American, farming industry.
Exactly. Now, you met Rita at actually a conference, right?
Yes, there's a great association of specialty cut flower growers, and they're farmers in every state. And they're really experts in their own regional uniqueness of what grows when and where. And so we met at a conference, and I got to come visit her farm. Okay.
And Rita, Cuts of Color, again in Weimar, Texas, out near LaGrange. And how did you get involved in growing flowers? I'm curious.
I pretty much inherited the love of flowers from my grandparents. And I just kept going in from there. And I used to raise vegetables, and I wanted to do something more fun.
Right.
I still raise vegetables, but I love growing flowers, and I love making people happy.
Yeah.
I love people calling, say, hey, make this arrangement for so-and-so. I want to brighten her day. And that's the ones I really love. And then I do love taking flowers into Houston to my market and selling them there, and just hearing the stories of happy people.
Yeah, well, that's part of the magic of it all, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, I can see it really lights you up, which is awesome. And, you made this transition from growing produce to flowers and found it to be really rewarding and successful, huh?
Yes, but I still do produce too.
Okay, so you're covering all the bases.
Yeah.
That's great. So I want to learn more about kind of the book and some of the stories behind it. Now I'm particularly curious about the new book. In this, you've created a bouquet of locally grown flowers every week for a year.
Right.
And just to show people that this is possible and you can have this wonderful diversity, right?
Right. And Tom, what happened was I was working on the 50-Mile Bouquet, and I was doing lots of floral arranging with this great, product that I bring home from farms. And it was November, and there was a lot of pushback, like, well, yeah, you can do local and seasonal if you live in Southern California, but you can't do that in Seattle, where I live, because what do we have? Twigs and conifers in the winter. I thought, no, let me see what I can do every week. And I used really unusual ingredients from my own garden and from friends. And then I started buying what the farmers had, and the growers who I've gotten to know, like Rita, they always have some secret little thing they're trying, and they'll say, well, check out this cool foliage, Debra, or this unusual bulb. And I was thrilled to see that you can have a bouquet year-round and have it be seasonal and local.
Right. And I think the consumers are more and more aware that these choices matter.
Absolutely. And the wedding market is really pushing the return to local, because brides become so involved in their selection of their colors and the seasons and the flowers that maybe remind them of grandmother or whatever. And these are flowers that can't be shipped from 2 continents away. They're more delicate and ephemeral, and they need that loving care, you know, of a local grower who's going to just grow them with attention, like gourmet, you know, couture details.
Yeah.
So
It's different when you're selling to somebody you know,
Yes.
as opposed to just shipping them off to market.
Yes.
And I think that's part of the reward, obviously, for you.
The biggest reward is the brides that I do when they come in. And either I deliver their flowers or they come pick them up and take them out to their wedding site. And the look in their faces, you know, it just warms your heart that they're so happy to get those flowers. And then you get all the comments, and it's just like, yes, that was worth it. All those hard work.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And you know, what I'm enjoying so much is just your passion for this, because it's evident, and I can see where your customers probably love that as well. Now, you know, beyond just the economy of this and the personal joy, there are other reasons why we should be growing flowers. And there are benefits just to having flower gardens. Do you go into that in your books at all?
Well, yeah, the whole idea of the 50-mile bouquet is kind of a play on the 100-mile diet, which we've heard about in the food world, but really it's looking at the fact that flowers are perishable. They're also, maybe some people consider luxury goods. I don't necessarily. We were talking about that.
The bees don't, and
That's
they need them.
So, right, if you go so far on the pendulum to edibles, then you don't have nectar sources for your pollinators.
Right.
So that's an argument for keeping flowers in your garden. The argument for keeping it local is really that it's good for the planet, and you're not using jet fuel to, you know, have flowers flown to you, or truck fuel to have them you know, driven to you. It's possible to have a 5-step bouquet even in your own backyard, where you have a little cutting garden.
Sure.
Even in pots. You had nasturtium today. I thought that would be the easiest thing to grow in pots. Use them for bouquets and for cooking.
Right, right. So, you know, again, great benefit to the gardener as well as to the planet, really, in a sense of growing all these things, and the joy of it, the healing kind of quality of having a garden. Now, doing all this really changes the relationship that people have with flowers in a way, and and something I know that you want to explore a little bit.
Well, I think there is sort of a spiritual quality to being close to your garden, and when we observe what we're growing, we stop and think about it, and we maybe have a greater appreciation than something that's, you know, just generic, as I said, a generic bunch of flowers. And for some people, the beauty of bringing them indoors and sharing them on their dining table or giving them as gifts, it's an ancient, timeless practice. And so we're just kind of reclaiming it.
Right, and the arrangement is an ancient and beautiful practice as well, a genuine art form. And I can tell that you delight in that, so that it's particularly joyful for me to be with you on that. But we have come to the end of our time, but thank you both so much for being our guests on Central Texas Gardener. Yes, best wishes in your endeavors.
Thank you.
And coming up next, it's our friend Daphne.